The shift they never saw coming. There is a moment in every God led life when the pain no longer defines you, when the heartbreak no longer holds you hostage, and the silence you were forced into begins to thunder louder than all the lies they spoke. That moment is when God begins to exalt you in plain view. You have your enemies. You don't scream for revenge. You don't demand justice. You simply rise, and they cannot comprehend how the narcissist who once manipulated your emotions, dismissed your worth, and underestimated your spirit now watches in or in terror, because whether they accept it or not, God has chosen you, and you are now walking in divine favor. This is not a story of vengeance, it's a testimony of redemption. A reminder that when God is for you, no one, not even the most deceptive narcissist, can stand against you. This message is for every soul who was once broken but held on to their faith. Now He's lifting you. And those who tried to break you are being forced to watch. Before the narcissist trembled, before the room was filled with witnesses to your rise, there was a season of silence. When you are looked down on, dismissed, and forgotten by man, and it's there in that hidden place of pain that our journey truly begins. They look down on you, but heaven never did. There was a season in your life where being unseen felt like your reality. You gave, and it wasn't enough. You forgave, and they laughed. You prayed, and the silence was deafening, and still He showed up. He remained loyal. You extended grace where judgment would have been easier. To the narcissist in your life, whether it was a spouse, a parent, a friend, or a boss, your kindness wasn't admired. It was exploited. Your loyalty wasn't on it. It was manipulated. You became their emotional punching bag, secret target, the one they could always count on to remain silent even when your soul was screaming. But what they never saw, what they could never comprehend, is it while they were looking down on you, heaven was looking straight at you, not with pity, not with disdain, but with intention. God never takes His eyes off His own. And you, the one who cried in private, the one who walked through storms no one else knew about, you are being watched by the eyes that never sleep. You are never overlooked by God. They saw your exhaustion and mistook it for defeat. God saw it as faith under fire. They saw your obedience and marked it as naive or God called it righteousness. They saw your boundaries as distance. God saw your discernment being awakened. The narcissist labeled you weak, but heaven had already declared you chosen. They never understood that the battlefield he was standing on was not about the narcissist at all. It was about who you would become if you didn't give up, and you didn't. You endured not because you enjoyed the suffering, but because somewhere deep in your spirit, you knew this pain had purpose. Somewhere, despite the abuse, the gaslighting, the abandonment, you sensed God was still present, still writing, still working. And He was behind the scenes of your heartbreak. God was building your character. He was breaking off the people pleasing. He was silencing the voices that taught you to shrink. He was rewriting the narrative they tried to engrave into your identity. You see, they tried to brand you with shame, but God was branding you with purpose. They saw a porn God, saw a prophet in the making. They saw someone easy to break. God saw someone worthy to carry the mantle of insurance and wisdom. Every time you were dismissed, God was documenting it. Every time they mocked you behind your back, heaven recorded it. And not one word was wasted, not one act of cruelty went unseen, because you are not Joe, just loved by God, you are defended by Him. There are things you survived that would have destroyed someone else. But here you are, still breathing, still believing, still carrying light in a world that tried to dim you. And that's why heaven has shifted. That's why the divine tables are turning, because now it's time for reversal. The ones who look down on you are about to witness what happens when someone walks faithfully through fire. You are not rising because they said sorry. You're rising because God said that's enough. The narcissist is shook not because you're angry, but because you're glowing with peace. You're glowing with clarity. You're glowing with a kind of favor that can't be bought, can't be faked, can't be denied. They didn't think you'd make it this far, but that's because they never realized who was carrying you. You weren't alone when you cried on the bathroom floor. You weren't alone when your name was slanted. You weren't alone when your heart broke and no one cared. God was there. God was there. And he was gathering every shattered piece, not just to restore you, but to reveal you, to reveal the calling on your life, to reveal the strength in your spirit, to reveal the truth that even when the world called you forgotten, God was calling you his own. And now those who mocked your pain, those who measured your worth by your worst moments, they are watching with wide eyes as God lifts you beyond what they ever imagined. They see the globe, they don't know the story. They see the blessing, but they can't comprehend the battle. They see the crown. But they missed the crushing. You didn't become who you are because of their praise. You became it despite their absence. And now they look up at someone they once looked down on, because heaven never did they look down on you, because they never saw who was holding you up. But now that heaven has revealed you, it's time to understand why God didn't vindicate you in private. He waited until the room was full. God waited until the room was full. To honor you, God is never in a hurry. His timing doesn't bend to human opinion or emotional urgency. While you were crying out, wondering when the pain would end, heaven was orchestrating something far greater than immediate relief. He was preparing a moment of revelation, but not just for you. For them too, for those who underestimated you, for those who laughed in secret while you bled in silence, for the narcissist who saw your humility as humiliation and your loyalty as license to exploit. They thought they got away with it, the lies, the manipulate. Asian, the smear campaigns, the moments where they smiled to your face and slandered you behind your back. They weren't just trying to hurt you, they were trying to erase you. And the worst part, they thought they succeeded. You stopped showing up, you grew quiet, you distanced yourself, and they interpreted your disappearance as defeat. But what they didn't know was this: God had you in the back room prepared. Hearing you for the front stage, you see God doesn't reveal his glory in half-empty rooms. He waits until the very people who doubted you, betrayed you, and dismissed you are seated. He waits until the audience is full, not to shame them, but to vindicate you, to dig. Declare to every spirit that mocked your tears and trampled your worth, this one is mine. This is divine strategy. And now the room is full. Now the narcissist who thought they'd broken you has no choice but to sit and watch as the favor of God surrounds you like fire. They scroll through your updates. They hear your name in rooms they never wanted you mentioned, and they feel the shift in the atmosphere. And they can't stop it, because this moment isn't about your revenge. It's about your release. It's about God saying, I told you not to touch what I've anointed. For so long, they controlled the narrative. They told others you were the problem, that you are unstable, that you were weak. And for a time, you couldn't speak. You had no voice to defend yourself. Because you are still healing, still bleeding, still learning to breathe again. But while they spoke lies, God was preparing truth. And now the truth doesn't need your voice, it speaks through your victory. They see it, they feel it, they can't deny it. The very person they tried to bury is now blooming in full view. And no one can take credit for this moment but God, because he waited until the right moment, not just to honor you, but to shut the mouths of every liar who stood against you, through public shaming, not through exposure, but through favor so undeniable it speaks louder than any accusation ever could. That's what has the narcissist shook, not that you survived, but that you flourished, that despite everything they tried, you emerged with a glow. They can't explain. You're not angry, you're not bitter, you're not even trying to retaliate. You're just walking in the kind of grace that makes those who plotted against you question everything they thought they knew, because he is the thing. God is not petty, but he is precise. He knew when to bring you forward. He knew when your heart was ready, when your wounds was sealed, when your posture way as pure. He didn't elevate you out of rage, he elevated you out of righteousness. He didn't demand this spotlight, you didn't scheme for it, you didn't beg for approval, you simply healed, you stayed faithful, and now God is exalting you in a way no one can silence. The narcissist wanted to erase you, but now your presence demands recognition, not because you seek it, but because God has set his seal upon you. You've become evidence of divine restoration. You're proof that what the enemy meant for evil, God has used for good. You're walking in the fruit of prayers. They didn't know you prayed prayers whispered in the dark, soaked in tears, anchored in hope that maybe, just maybe, this suffering would not be in vain. And it wasn't, because now they can't and see what God has done. The narcissist who once laughed at your breakdown is watching your breakthrough, and they have no words, only questions: how and why them, and the answer is simple: because God said. So he said enough, he said now, he said, watch what I do with the one you tried to destroy. And so they watch as you rise, not with arrogance, but with assurance, as you glow, not with revenge, but with reverence, as you walk not in spite, but in purpose. Because the same God who sat with you in your lowest valley is now walking with you into your highest calling. And those who once looked down on you, they must now look up to witness the glory God is placing on your life. This is what divine vindication looks like. This is what it means to be highly favored. And this is why the narcissist is shaken to the core, because now they know you were never the weak one, you were just the hidden one. And now you've been revealed. If this part of the message stood something deep inside you, if you've ever felt forgotten while others were celebrated, and now you sense that shift, that divine moment where God is saying, now it's your turn, then don't stay silent. Comment below: God waited, but now the room is full. I'm ready to rise. Let it be your declaration of faith that your time has come and heaven has made sure the right people are watching, because this time your story won't be ignored, it will be witnessed. And while they're forced to watch, stunned by your rise, what they can't yet comprehend is that it was their cruelty that pushed you into purpose. God didn't just lift you in spite of them, he used them to shop you. God used their cruelty as your catalyst. God doesn't waste pain. He never has, he never will. While you were trying to survive the narcissist cruelty, the manipulation, the emotional warfare, the silent treatments, the sabotage, God was quietly transforming you. What looked like a season of destruction was actually a holy construction site. They thought they were tearing you down, but God was tearing off everything that didn't belong to who you are becoming. Their cruelty was not in vain, it was a catalyst. The narcissist believed their words would crush your confidence, and for a moment it may have worked. You questioned yourself, you doubted your worth, you second guessed your decisions, But the longer you stay near their poison, the more desperate you became for the presence of something pure, and that desperation drew you closer to God than ever before. Every time they guess you, he lit your path with truth. Every time they twisted your voice, he reminded you of your identity. Every time they tried to make you feel small, heaven whispered, "You are mine." You didn't just survive their attacks, you were shaped by them, and not into bitterness, but into boldness, not into revenge, but into revelation. What they meant as punishment, God repurposed as preparation. They mocked your emotions, but God anointed your empathy. They labeled you too sensitive, but God called it prophetic sensitivity, the kind that hears what others ignore and see what others miss. You learn how to pray from the deepest place of pain. You learn how to worship with no witnesses, no applause, no assurance. But God alone, you learn how to walk where no one cheered, how to fight spiritual battles with no one watching, and how to believe even when everything felt broken. And somewhere in the middle of that wilderness, you changed. He stopped asking, "Why me?" and started asking, "What now, God?" He stopped fighting for their attention and started craving God's direction. He stopped trying to fix what was fake and started embracing what was eternal. That moment, the moment you stopped chasing people and started chasing God, was the moment everything began to shift. You became dangerous to the kingdom of darkness, not because of vengeance, but because of your obedience. The narcissist wanted to keep you bound to their cycle of approval seeking, of self blame, of confusion and chaos. But God interrupted the cycle. He didn't just pull you out, He turned the cycle into a staircase. And every time you got knocked down, you weren't sent back to the beginning, He was sent up to the next level. Every rejection lifted you, every insult strengthened you, every betrayal purifying you. You were being elevated in stages, and they didn't even know it. What was meant to humiliate you ended up humbling you before God, and humility before God always leads to eggs. Salt Asian in his time, God never applauded the narcissist behavior, but he saw the potential in the pain, and he redeemed it. He used what was meant to break you to build you into someone who carries divine authority, the kind of authority that doesn't shout but silences atmospheres, the kind that doesn't need to prove but automatically commands respect. You're walking now with a kind of power that only comes from private battles and public silence. You've been to war, and you were peace like armor. That's what has them shook. They don't understand how you came out of that relationship wiser. They can't explain how the person they tried to destroy is now glowing with God's glory. They didn't expect you to thrive, but they didn't know who was standing beside you in the fire. You didn't make it through that hell on your own. The fourth man in the fire was with you, just like with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You are never alone. And now, just like them, you're stepping out of the flames with not even the smell of smoke on you. That's divine protection. That's what happens when God uses cruelty as a catalyst and pain as a platform. And now God is giving you the voice. They tried to steal the confidence. They tried to crush the peace. They tried to poison. You no longer have to fight to be heard. You don't need their apology to move forward, because God has already answered with elevation. Your rise is your response, your favor is your vindication. Let them wander, let them watch, let them question how it all turned around. The answer is simple. They pushed you and God caught you. And now He's placing you where no manipulation can reach, where no light can land, where no narcissist can follow. Because you're not just recovering anymore, you're reigning. You see, the transformation didn't stop at survival. As you stepped into healing, the favor on your life began to speak louder than anything they had ever said about you. Now, you don't need validation because divine favor confirms itself. Divine favor doesn't need validation, it confirms itself. Is something uniquely powerful about favor that comes from God. It doesn't ask for permission, He doesn't wait for applause. And it certainly doesn't beg for validation. Divine favor doesn't walk into a room and announce itself. He doesn't have to, it carries its own authority, it confirms itself. And that's exactly what is happening in your life right now. You didn't have to call a press conference to let people know you've changed. You didn't have to post a highlight reel or prove your worth to the narcissist who once controlled the storyline. Why? Because God has made your transformation so visible, so undeniable, that even those who never respected your voice are now forced to respect your presence. The narcissist thought they had the final word on your identity. They believed they could shape how others saw you. They whispered in shadows, poisoned relationships, smeared your name, all in an attempt to ensure that no one would ever see your worth. But what they forgot is that God doesn't crown people based on public opinion. He crowns them based on divine assignment. And when it's your time, it's your time. No manipulation can stop it. This is what has them shaken, not your attitude, not your voice, not even your success. It's the weight of glory on your life that terrifies them. It's the quiet confidence that radiates from you without words. It's the way you've stopped trying to convince people and started letting the evidence of God's hand speak for you. You're not just surviving anymore. You're walking in authority, the kind of authority that isn't loud, but it's louder than any lie ever told about you, the kind of favor that answers accusations without rebuttal. It doesn't come from effort. It doesn't come from status. It doesn't even come from justice. He comes from being in alignment with heaven. What's happening in your life right now, this restoration, this elevation, this new peace, it's not random. It's a divine response to everything you've endured in silence while others celebrated your downfall, mocked your process, or used your pain for gossip. God was writing a new chapter with His own hand. A chapter where your name is honored, your purpose is clarified, and your pain is finally validated not by people, but by the power of results only heaven could bring, and His the truth. The narcissist can't argue with results. They can say what they want, twist what they want, pretend they weren't part of the chaos. But they cannot deny what God has done in new. They can't deny the glow that now rests on your countenance. They can't deny the peace you carry, the kind that doesn't make sense in the natural. They can't deny that the one they tried to break is now thriving with supernatural strength. Favor does not seek revenge, it simply shines, it moves forward without resistance. It's gentle, but it's untouchable. And that's what unnerved the narcissist the most. They cannot touch what God has covered. They had access to your weakness, but now they're witnessing your covering. They had a front row seat to your breakdown, but now they're stuck in the back watching your breakthrough. They were used to controlling the narrative. Now God has reclaimed the pen, and the story He's writing, it's breathtaking because it's no longer about pain, it's about purpose. It's no longer about survival, it's about divine significance. This new version of you, rooted, healed, rising, is not someone who needs to chase anything. You're not looking for closure. You're not waiting for validation. Because you know now more than ever what God validates, no human being can invalidate. To let them wander, let them whisper in corners, let them try to make sense of your sudden bloom. They won't be able to because favor doesn't explain itself, it just works. Favre doesn't need to win an argument, it just wins, and favor doesn't apologize for showing up. It shows up exactly when God says so. You are no longer the version of yourself who had to beg for understanding. You are no longer the one who sat in rooms that couldn't recognize your worth. You have stepped into a divine reality where the light of God, Saru,